What up? Welcome to Music Blueprint. Today we are going to talk about songwriting / studio etiquette. I have recently been in some interesting songwriting scenarios where the other person, by the way of their communication or by the way that they acted, I was like, I don't want to work with that person again. So I thought it would be really smart to do a video about that etiquette and what I found in that scenario to not work for me, which, again, it doesn't, the buck doesn't stop with me on that thing. People have different opinions and different views or whatever. But nonetheless, this industry is about people at the end of the day, and it's about connecting with people. It's really about who you know, and if you make somebody feel a certain way, they're not going to want to work with you. And you really, 9 times out of 10, you only get one chance to really make an impression on somebody. So I thought we'd talk about this. First things first is you always, as a songwriter, as an artist, as a producer, as a manager, as a whatever, you want to create a creative space. Don't walk in there squashing every piece of creativity that could possibly be in there. For instance, don't go in there and start telling all the things that you can't stand, or the fact that you don't like pop music, or that you don't like rock music, or that you don't like this and that. You don't know who the other person is in the room and what they love and what they listen to and the elements that they could bring to the song. Maybe they grew up listening to classic rock and we're writing a hip hop R&B song, but they could add that crazy edge and all of a sudden this song is something that's never been heard before and everybody's going to want it. But if you walked in there and you started squashing all these people's creativity, you're just going to get the same song that you always get because you're trying to run the show of the creative direction. And I think as creatives, we get jaded sometimes about certain genres or about how we feel about certain things, and we just kind of word vomit our feelings. And I think it's really wise to have a gate and a filter, because you don't know how the other person feels. You don't know that your political stance is the same political stance as somebody else. You see what I'm getting at? You have to be very conscious and very aware about what is happening in that room, because the moment that something is said that is very negative, or the person's not messing with it or whatever, it is like lighting a match in a room full of oxygen. The whole place is going to burn up. And you'll get a song, but a lot of times what I have found is people will not promote a song because just on the sheer fact of how they felt about the process of that song. I know I've done it. I've had songs that are like, this is a pretty good song, I probably could get it cut. But I'm like, I don't like the person I worked with. I'm not pushing that song. I have 100 other songs I can push. And I like those people. You really have to be aware about how you're making people feel. I know a lot of, I don't want to say guys. I mean, when I say guys, I mean general people, like guys and girls. But I know a lot of people that they're like, well, that's their issue. I mean, it might be like one person is their issue, but if you're running into it over and over again, it's not them. It might be them. Maybe a part was them, but also you can't control them. You can only control you. And you just have to be really careful about how you talk in a session, because when you go into that session, people have their emotions on their sleeve. They're trying to be open and vulnerable and all these different things. And before they can even form a word, you're already in there spewing negativity. I'm saying a general you. I'm not talking to you listening right now, although maybe this is directed at you, a good spoonful of medicine, but you just have to be very careful. Okay. The second thing I would say is be aware of people's reactions and body movements and things of that nature. You might go in and you might have a really dope idea. You're like, I want to write this song called Lilacs. And you're like, I've got this dope idea, blah, 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 all this stuff. Read the person across from you. If they're not messing with lilacs, don't waste your great idea that you have that you're stoked about on somebody that's not stoked about it. Okay? Again, it's everything about in the studio is about being aware and being conscious about the other person and the people around you, because you, at the end of the day, you're trying to give people, and I don't really like saying this phrase, but it's the best phrase that I can think of to connect what I'm trying to say, is you're trying to give people the permission to feel anything. I have been in the studio and people have said some weird, I mean just weird stuff, and I'm like, what? Now, when that person said, what about sight for sore eyes as a lyric? In my head, I was like, I don't even know what the frick that means, and I don't even know where to go with that. But did my body and my mouth express that? Absolutely not. What I said, I was like, oh, what do you mean by that? Like, where are you going with that? And then that person explained where they were going with it. I was like, oh, I see where you're going. Okay, yeah, cool. That's like a really cool thought. And then I validated their feeling about something, and whether or not I went in that direction is irrelevant. I validated that feeling, because you don't ever want to, somebody else might think Sight for Sore Eyes is the dopest lyric in the world. Cool. Today was not the day with me. I didn't think it was that dope. But again, he didn't have to waste that idea on me. I think he kind of knew when I was moving in another direction, kindly moving in another direction, mind you, he knew that he could tuck that away for another day. So don't waste your great ideas on people that aren't really messing with it. You have so many great ideas. Pick another one. Or maybe they have a great idea and you're like, dang, that's sick. Like, feel the vibe of the room. You just have to be very aware. And it's hard for people, especially like me, who tend to be more brain than heart. I tend to be more logical, more just matter of fact, or direct and to the point. You know, sometimes when I write with my best friend, he and we're like siblings. I mean, we've written together for the last 10 years. We've known each other for the last 10 years. We don't have to really, tiptoe around ideas. We could just be like, I don't really like that. Like, whatever. But you can't take that scenario of people that you're really comfortable with and take that elsewhere. And honestly, even when you're comfortable with people, you really still have to be aware of how you are navigating their emotions, because a lot of people will put on a strong front and be like, oh, okay, and they'll just move on to the next thing. But 2 months later, they'll be like, no, that pissed me off. I wasn't about that, and I didn't care about the song after that. At the end of the day, it's like, what's your goal? You're trying to create this product of something that's never been created before. Nothing's new under the sun, right? But they're still trying to create this product that's never been made before. You and the 3 people, other people, or 2 other people in the room. And so you're coming up with these ideas, and you're trying to weed out these different things, but at the same time, you're navigating the emotion that people have attached to the lyric that they laid out. Because a lot of times, in scenarios that I have been in as well, people feel a certain kind of way when they realize none of their lyrics are being taken. How do you navigate that emotion? How do you make somebody feel like they're still a part of the vibe, and without them, you probably wouldn't have written the song, even though none of their lyrics are getting in? You have to be able to navigate that. Because again, you never know at the end of the day what that person's going to do, who that person is connected to, none of that. And honestly, you really shouldn't want to make people feel that way. You shouldn't want to make people feel like they're less than or not enough, because sometimes people just have bad days at the end of the day. I mean, I've been in the studio and I'm like, dang, I'm the only pop writer in a room full of hip hop writers. What am I bringing to the table here? And a lot of times I've walked away from those scenarios and been like, I don't feel like I brought anything. But then the people I wrote with, they're like, no, you brought this and you were editing for us. And like, they hyped me up, they gassed me up, and they were like, no, we wouldn't have written that song without you. And I'm like, okay, that's good to know. Like, you know, I can always just strive to be better and just work at my craft and you know, focus on just myself and not being like, what are they thinking about me? No, it's about, okay, I feel insecure right now because typically in a pop scenario, I'm the one that's bringing all the heat, and right now I'm not, and that makes me feel a certain kind of way, and I need to make sure that I'm not reflecting that to everybody else in the room, because insecurity is another squasher, creativity squasher, and everybody knows if you're the one that's not getting the lines and you're trying to act like, oh no, that line's whack or whatever, they're like, no, you're just saying that because you want your line in. So being aware of that, and that's probably the third thing about being in a creative room. Be aware of your insecurities. Make sure that you are not reflecting whatever insecurity that you're feeling inside to the rest of the room. One, because it is a creative squasher. People know, just as you know, when you're getting lines in and when you're not. People know. What's that TikTok? They're not gonna know. They're gonna know. We know. But you have to figure out at the end of the day, okay, I'm not getting my lines in. That's fine. Today might be an off day for me. Cool. Give myself some grace, 1. 2, how can I still contribute to the vibe and the feeling of this song even though I am not getting the lyrics in? For instance, in this last hip hop session that I was in, I actually got a lot of melodies in and a lot of arranging in. I've kind of pieced a lot of the things together. They laid down a lot of stuff. I'm like, yo, that's fire, this is fire, whatever. I pieced it all together. Then when it came to the lyric writing, I was like, okay, this is not really my strength because I come from a pop background. But the one thing that I do have in a pop background is I know like the key words. So I know in hip hop, and R&B, they typically use more like elevated diction. They'll use like bigger words, like 3-syllable words, 4-syllable words, like something like automatic. They'll use like a word like that. Rather than in pop, we try to keep it really simple. It's like most of the time pop lyrics is to a 3rd grade level, maybe less than that. I think it's actually 1st grade, and then hip hop and R&B tends to be like 5th or 6th grade level. So they kind of put in these like really big words or pop culture references or whatever. So when I went in, I was like, I'm not going to know how to phrase it because one, in that scenario, I'm like, I'm the only one here that's not Jamaican. I've never even been to Jamaica. I don't know Creole. I don't know any of the like swaggy lingo. I'm not even going to act like that's me because it's not. Because then if you're trying to act like somebody you're not, that's a whole other scenario. That might be point number 4, but we'll come back to that. And so I was like, but I'm really good at finding the key words. So what are the words and the vibes, or what is the emotion? Because pop is all about emotion, but in hip hop, it's line by line. So they're thinking of emotion line by line rather than, you know, in pop, you're like, I'm trying to get to here, 3 lines back, I need to start the emotion of that to get to this idea. Rather than hip hop, it's just idea. They don't even have to be connected. So I'm like, cool. I'll say, well, like, I don't know if you guys like this or not, but you know, when I was a kid, every other weekend, my dad would take me to this restaurant because that's when he had me. And we had this waitress, and her name was Rainy Tuesday, and her family named her that because she was born on a rainy Tuesday. So they were like, yo, that's kind of dope. That's a sick title. And then they took that and spun it to make it fit the vibe. So I got the title of the song somehow just by expressing my feelings and expressing the key words that needed to be in play. So again, you just have to figure out what is your piece in that room. Be yourself, but also don't let your insecurities recluse you into a hole, and then you're just this negative person in the corner that's like, no, that's whack, this is black, and then you're just shooting down everybody's creativity. Everything you're trying to do in that room is trying to pump up the creativity as much as you can, almost to the point that you're like, dang, we have so many ideas, this is like 3 songs on one beat. That would be your goal at the end of the day. So, that was the third point. Make sure you know what you feel insecure about. The fourth point is be yourself. I don't ever go into a room and say that I'm a hip-hop R&B artist when I'm in those kind of rooms. I just don't. I just go in and I'm like, they're like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a pop writer. They're like, cool, bet. You're going to come up with some dope melodies that we never heard of, or like, you're going to come up with some lyrics that we never heard of, or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And then when the roles are reversed and they're in my element, I'm like, yo, you're going to come up with some melodies and rhythms that I've never even heard of. It's just this balance. And the more that you can be yourself, and the more that you can just understand, look, this is what I'm good at. I'm going to stay in my lane. You stay in your lane. Let's somehow merge these lanes together and come up with something crazy, because some of these pop songs that are coming out now, they got a lot of flair from a lot of other different cultures and genres and all these different things. I mean, right now, the first one I can think of off the top of the head is like What Lovers Do by Maroon 5 and SZA. SZA's part is completely different. It is like R&B kind of pop, but what makes it pop is the beat. And she just goes in there and just does her thing, and it is hard. But the key to that is that she didn't act like anything other than herself. And the writers that were writing for that scenario didn't act like anything other than themselves. The pop people acted like the pop people. The R&B people acted like the R&B people. And then they kind of did some crossovers. They were like, yo, yeah, that pop melody's cool, but what if you did this? And somebody's like, oh, that's actually kind of sick. I never heard that before. And then they put that in. It's all about give and take and saying, okay, you do this. Okay, put your flair on it. Oh, okay, that's crazy. Okay, we got to get that in there. Oh, what do you do? Oh, wow, that was wild. Okay, yeah, for sure, we got to put that in there. And then piecing it all together. Respecting each other about each other's lanes. And being yourself goes back to kind of the first point of don't go in there and start being negative on genres. Even if you've had negative experiences with them, just don't go in there and do that. I've gone into too many rooms, and actually very recently where I'm like, yo, I kind of want to do a pop track, and they're like, pop sucks, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, now I don't even want to write anything with you because you're trying to diss what I do. And now I'm not really messing with you like that. So I didn't go into your room and when we were writing hip-hop and R&B, be like, hip-hop R&B sucks. And not that I feel that way, but still, I didn't go in there and say that. Or I didn't say, oh, I don't really feel like writing hip-hop R&B because I've been writing a lot of it lately and I just want to write a pop song. No, the vibe of the room was hip-hop R&B. I'm like, cool, all right. I mean, I've done tip 10 of those this week, but you know what? Here comes the 11th. Go in with a good attitude. Have a good time and be open to people's different creativity. Don't go in there and squash the vibe of the room because, again, and I said this in last week's podcast, people remember how you make them feel. They don't remember what you said to them. You could say 100 positive things to them and it doesn't really matter. They remember how you made them feel. So being aware of that, your song might be the next number one hit song. But if 3 of the people in the room weren't messing with you, they might just be like, I'm not really messing with that song. And they might not even know why. They might not even know why they don't like that song. And you might know this song's the number one hit, but the people that need to get it in the right hands, they're like, I'm not really messing with this song, and they have no idea why. And actually, the reason why is you might have made them feel a certain way about you. And they're like, I don't really like that person. So the goal at the end of the day is you want to release music, right? And you want to be successful and make money and all these different things. And what it comes down to at the end of the day, when you're really trying to make money and you're really trying to grow your business and move up in the music industry, it all comes down to people and how you make them feel. All right, guys, that is studio and songwriting etiquette. I feel like I could go on and on about this, so I might end up doing another video if you guys like this or not. But go out there, be kind, and be creative. Let other people be creative as well. It's the best way to get the best product or song. So see you guys next week. Peace.